We'll do a review on Likutei Sichos in Chelek Chof Aleph, volume 21. This is the first Sikh of the Parshas Vayakhel. This is also, as it says in the star, this is also the siyum of the laws of Beis Habchira Laharambam. A very interesting note over here, and I want to spend a few minutes deciphering this note that the Rebbe brings down. First of all, this itself, that to make a siyum on a halacha in the Rambam, like Hilchos Beis Habchira Rambam, this is something that the Rebbe has initiated, the Rebbe has instituted. This is not the usual siyum that we're used to, a siyum mesechta, a siyum of a conclusion, even the whole Rambam. In this case, every halacha in the Rambam itself. So in this case, it's the laws of Beis Habchira Rambam. And in this note, the Rebbe uses some unusual language to make his point. And the Rebbe is going to say, first of all, the Rebbe says that there is 8 chapters over here in the laws of Beis Habchira. And the Rebbe, in the parentheses, references the Braise of Maaseh Torah Oisches. There is a Braise which is references that it goes to Rabbi Yehuda Nossi. Over there in this Braise, they have all the numbers, what they mean. So like every time we found in the Torah something which is 1, every time which we have in the Torah which is the Ois base, every time we have Ois Gimel, there is three of, anytime the Gemara will say there are 3 things, it's quoted over there. 4, 5. Then we also have the letter of Oisches. So in the letter of Oisches, it brings down everything of the Chazal, which begin, which have 8. And then actually there is addendums, additions to that. They found further places in which these numbers match up, so they bring that down as well from the later Meforshim. So the Rebbe apparently is trying to say, well, this is another ches, because this is 8 halachas in the Rambam. And the Rebbe said, if you like it, the Rebbe uses an unusual language, V'haboicher yivchar. The one who chooses, let him choose. In other words, if you don't like to add this to ches, fine. He's giving you. I also think, it seems to me that maybe because we're learning Hilchos Beis Habchira, the chosen house, the Beis Habchira, maybe that's why another reason the Rebbe Loshen, Nefal Loshen, chooses the Loshen over here. Again, it's unusual for the Rebbe to use this language. The one who chooses, let him choose. In other words, if you don't like this ches to be part of the 8 in the Ois ches in the Brais over there to add it to it, fine. Doesn't have to be. And then the Rebbe continues and says, Hilchoisov is Kuf Lamed Zayin. If you take a look how many halachas, when you combine all the halachas and the 8 prokim together, you have 137. Now, who says there is something like this to combine all the halachas together and get a number out of that and make a meaning? And the Rebbe is going to make a meaning that 137 is the numbers of years that Levi lived, as we say in the Chumash Shmos, it brings down that he lived for 137 years. So, but who tells us that there is something to it? How many halachas it comes out? Here it comes out in the 8th chapter of the Rambam, there is 137 halachas. So the Rebbe says this is similar to Loshna Rambam Hilchos Chanukah Pedig Gimel Seif Halacha Yud Beis. So over there, the Rambam actually brings down how many times do you say Hallelujah? So the Rambam says over there, you say it 123 times. The Rambam goes through there when you answer every time. You say Hallelujah. So you have 123 times. And the Rambam says, what is the sign for it? Shenoisov Shel Aaron, the years of Aaron. Aaron lived for 123 years, and that's why we say that's a simmer for it. So the Rebbe is saying here you have 137 halachas in all of the 8 prokim. What is the sign for them? The years of Levi, because Levi lived 137 years, and that's the number of halachas in Beis Hamchira. So you're going to ask, what's the question? What's the connection between Beis Hamchira and Levi? Why do we need hinted in the Rambam in the 137 halachas the years of Levi? Because Levi has a special connection, because Levi was chosen to serve in the Beis HaBechira, that he was chosen in the Beis HaBechira. And so that's why the years of Levi are hinted within the halachas in the Rambam. So you're going to say, but it wasn't Levi that was chosen. It was serving in the Beis HaBechira was actually Aaron was chosen to serve. That was Levi had Gershon Kosu Merori, and Kohos says Amram Yitzhak, and Amram had a son, Moshe and Aaron, sons of Moshe and Aaron. And Aaron was chosen. Why are we saying that he was chosen in the Beis HaBechira? So the Rebbe says, look in the Mechilta B'Tchiloso, in which over there it says, Acheloi Nivchar Aaron. Not exactly sure in the Mechilta, because in the Mechilta it says there actually Nivchar Aaron, it was for all Yidden. So perhaps what the Rebbe means with the Mechilta over here is that that actually it is Aaron and Levi being the predecessor of Aaron, and everybody else is not fit for the kahuna. Not exactly sure what the Rebbe means with this Mechilta here, but nevertheless, there's also very unusual language over here. The Rebbe says, "V'im shagisi Hashem yichaper." It's used if I made a mistake, may Hashem atone. That's a language used sometimes when a person says. So it still needs to be clarified. But it's an unusual piece here, in which the Rebbe also apparently, I think, uses the word nifchar in association with the Beis HaBechira. Actually, nivchar l'shores bebeis HaBechira, chosen. And that's why the years of Levi. Maybe that's why the Rebbe brings the Mechilta just to use the word nivchar in, again, not Lashon of Lashon. In any event, this whole note here is sort of unusual. Anyways, let's get back to the Sikh itself. It took up a little bit longer over here. The Rebbe will explain a halacha in Hilchos Beis HaBechira. The Rebbe will ask, we know that there's no shvus in the Beis HaMikdash. How come when they watched the Beis HaMikdash on Shabbos, they had to change it and not to take the lamps, but that would only be muktzah, which should be mutar midrabanan. The Rebbe explained this was all done mitzad kovet. That's why these halachas belong into the Beis HaBechira. And because of kovet, it's not appropriate to do it in a way of violating. The Rebbe will go further on that. Okay, but let's just look inside. We'll go step by step. Aleph. In Soif von letzten Perek von Hilchos Beis HaBechira, at the end of the last chapter of Laws of Beis HaBechira, in welchem der Rambam is mevair the dinim for Shmiras HaMikdash, the Rambam explains the laws of guarding the Mikdash. Nochdem was is metair in Halacha Yud Aleph, after describing in the 11th Halacha, Be'azoi di Kohanim hoben jeden in the free, how the Kohanim every morning, b'shachar koidim sheyala amud hashachar somuch loi, in the morning before the dawn, close to dawn. So, boide given, the Kohanim would inspect mit shtei avukos shel oir biyodom. They had 2 flames, lanterns with flames in their hand. in the Azora, and they used to inspect alles is dort in Ordnung, that everything is in order there. So that's in Aloch Yidala. Viert ois the Rambam, and the Rambam concludes in a halacha Yud Beis Bifnei Atzmai, in a halacha number 12 on its own halacha, which is also something unusual. Why does the Rambam have to make a separate halacha? The Rebbe points it out. The Rebbe will speak later on. So what does the Rambam say? This is going to be the subject matter that we're going to discuss. This would be the order that they would do every night and night. Chutz milele Shabbos. The exception is the night of Shabbos, they didn't do this. They didn't take these two flames and walk around with them. She'ein biyodam oir. They didn't have any fire in their hand. Elaboitkin benedis had looking shom me'erev Shabbos. They would inspect with the lamps that are lit there from erev Shabbos. There were lamps lit in there, so they would use that. On Shabbos, they didn't want to take those avukas, the two avukas beyond. So the question is, taking avukas is only muktzah. So there's no shvus, there's no rabbinic prohibitions applied to the Beis Hamikdash. Why did they have to change? Is Yadur, the Shalas and Meforshim, it's known the question of the commentators. The din is doch, the law is, as the Rambam Paskin become Mekoimis. The Rambam rules like this in many places, as ein shvus b'mikdash. There is no shvus, a rabbinic prohibition, which is called a shvus in the mikdash. Until haneres b'Shabbos, and moving the lamps on Shabbos is doch nor an isur shvus. It's merely an isur from the Rabbana shvus. That need to rest. The Chacham said you can't do that. Hein farvos is memeshane b'leil Shabbos anders. So how come we needed to change on the night of Shabbos to change the regular order? As ein biyodam oir, they didn't have the light. Elaboitki benedis had looking shom be'erev Shabbos, but rather they would check with the fire the lamps that were lit for erev Shabbos. So why? Why did it have to change? The Kesef Mishnah answered. The Kesef Mishnah responds. That this case is different. Since there's a possibility to use the lamps that have been lit from before Shabbos, so there's no point to using neiros that were lit on Shabbos, even though you're allowed to, but we can only use, seems like the saying Shvuz b'mikdash if we need that, but in this case it's not needed. Since there is a possibility to inspect und dabei ausmeiden dem Shvus, by circumventing and not needing to do a Shvus, is mendamut nit matir dem Shvus, then you don't permit this Shvus. Basically, from this Kesef Mishnah, it seems that we say that there is no Shvus in the Mikdash, that means when we need the Shvus. But if we're able to manage without the Shvus, then we don't do the Shvus. But the Rebbe asks, there's many places in the Rambam we see that even when you couldn't admit the Shvus, and still we do the Shvus. The Tirutz is over Tzarichi, and this answer needs to be looked into. As other commentators already asked. The Rambam rules in Hilchos Avodas Yom Kippurim, in the laws of the service of Yom Kippur, as Hoya Kohen Gadol Zoken Echayla, let's say the Kohen Gadol was elderly or he was sick, and going to immerse in the mikveh water could be very hard, not healthy for a old or a sick Kohen Gadol. So what do? Melabnin ashoshiyesh shel barzel ba'esh miberev. So they would whiten, heat up metal ashoshiyesh from the evening. Umatilin oisel lamochar b'mayim, and the next day we put it into the water to heat up. in order to remove some of the cold of the mikveh. She'ein shvuz b'mikdash. This putting in the ashoshia shel barzel is not really cooking on, but heating up in that way is with the rabbanon aser. But ein shvuz b'mikdash, so there's no shvuz, so therefore it's okay. Choch azoich in them fall also in this case. We don't need to do this. We can protect this and make sure the mikveh isn't cold as only Zaykin Shvus without having to violate a Shvus. With the Rambam Alein Firtois, the Rambam himself says there's another option. Or that you mix in some warm water in the mikveh water in order to remove the cold. And that would not violate any shvus. So why don't we do it that way? So why? So it would seem that it would not be a problem to do a shvus even when you have an option, as we see here. So let's say we can look the way the normal way in the whole week, but there's no problem to use the lamps, the lanterns that you use a whole every day. Why do you have to make it different Shabbos? This and then another question. The Rambam rules as oib der kohen gadol bikesh lihisnamnim. If the kohen gadol was starting to snooze, is pirchei levia makim lefonov be'etz bat sereda. They would bang in front of him with sereda. They would sort of wake him up. Bang. Chosh dos is Shabbos. That would be also with the Rabbanon also. With the Rambam Paskin in Hilchos Shabbos, as the Rambam rules in Hilchos Shabbos. There's other ways. You don't need to do a Shavuos to wake him up. As eine von einer anderen Mittel. There's other means of to help them Kohen Gadol sein wach to be awake. So you see that technically in the Beis Hamikdash there is no Shavuos at all, even if you have the possibility to do without the Shavuos. So the question is, how come we had to change the service on night of Shabbos from the service a whole year by using the two lanterns? It would be only muktzah, and that should be okay. And now the Rebbe says, Beis, maybe there'll be a difference to do something on a permanent way, or a shvus, or do something on a one time. This to make the seder that every Shabbos you should do a shvus. Even in the Beis Hamikdash, we don't want to do that. Maybe we can say, but the Rebbe is going to prove that that is not really the case. Even on a regular basis, we still do that. Let's look aside base. The pashtus kemen mechalik zayin. Simply, one can make a distinction. The klal von ein shvus b'mikdash oich b'de'efshe binyan achar. This rule that there's no shvus in the mikdash, even when you can do it in another way, is blois vens das is an arayd. It's only when it's temporary. The hainu, which means es macht sich a spezieller matzev was ken bavoren werden durch hashvus. It happens to be a special situation that can be taken care of through a shvus. We'll do the shvus. Is damul do der heter shvus b'mikdash? Then there is the permission to do a shvus in the mikdash. Afilu b'mekenton beifan achar, even if you can do it otherwise. Vilidoma, as for example, oib hoya koyen godel zoken echayla. It happened to be that he was elderly or he was sick, or or he wanted to snooze. It happens. Then you can use a shavus even if you wake up otherwise. Does haste, but which means, but to have a set seder. Seder hakavua can it sein verbunden mit hashvus. A set seder cannot be associated, tied to a shvus. Nor b'mikrim mesuyomim kemen onkum zum heter. Only in specific cases you can come onto that permission to use a shvus, but not when you can do it otherwise. To set up is not something we can do. But in our case would be, so basically the rule is if you can't set it up. If it came to a certain situation, that's when you can use it, the heter. But in our case, we're trying to say, make it a permanent thing that every Shabbos you should do so. In our case, we're talking about setting up a set order. For a conduct of the Kohanim on every Shabbos and Shabbos. Und in der Fall ist wie bald is efsher be'ofen achar. Since it's possible to do it in another way, is man nit koiveya, so we don't set up an hogas HaKohanim be'ofen kozeh. The conduct of the Kohanim should be in such a way as mizol ständig darfen ton shvus b'mikdash, that you should always do a shvus b'mikdash. So the Rebbe tries to suggest here that it'll be a nafkemina to set up something on a regular basis to violate a shvus. Even we don't do it. When do we violate a shvus? Even when you have an opportunity to do it. Otherwise, it's only on an occasional when that happens, as in the cases where he's sick or he wants to snooze, you need to do, so then you can do it, even though you can do it in a good way. But here, when you can do it in a permissible way, we're not going to set it up. Maybe that's going to be the extinction. But the Rebbe says that's not really the case, because we find it set up also with a shvus. The hasbara is aber nit maspika. This explanation is not yet sufficient. Weil man gefindt dem heter for shvus b'mikdash, because we do find the allowance of a shvus b'mikdash euch in fall when he is a seder kavua, also when it's a set, it's a permanent, it's always the seder. When Erev Pesach is Chali is b'Shabbos, when Erev Pesach comes on Shabbos, and you have to bring the Korban Pesach, you have to bring it on Shabbos. So the Korban Pesach is mutter to be brought on the 14th. Some of the avodas not. But what about skinning the animal? Is der din as man is mafshid dem oir from der korban al gabe hamaklis. To skin the animal, you can do on the sticks just like you do it in the choil, which means it's an issue with Rabbana. Even though it's possibly doing another way. We will not violate any issue in Torah. That's why you wait there, you don't carry, you wait till the nighttime. But the avoida of a mafshit in a normal way, as we do throughout the year, not on Shabbos, we do it the normal way. Al gabe maklas, just like in the weekday. And alpha pieces you can make it in a shina, and yet we don't do the and this is a permanence every time when Erev Pesach comes out on Shabbos. Now the Rebbe says, don't say that's not called permanent because Erev Pesach doesn't come out on Shabbos all the time. But it means when it does come out, that's the way to do it. That means that we set things up that way. So Erev Pesach Shachali is b'Shabbos is gerechen v'aray, that we count this Erev Pesach as temporary, because it's only from time to time. But whenever it comes, that's the way we do it. So it's a hard distinction to say that we will not be allowed to carry these lanterns because it's a set thing. That shouldn't be a problem. And even if you can do it in other ways, seems that should be okay. Now, and the Rebbe is going to explain later on that we don't want to do, it's not honorable to do one. We have different two explanations, but one of them is not honorable to do it through, it's honor of the Mikdash, it's not honorable to do it by violating a shvus. When we talk about the covet of the Beis Hamikdash, which is the point over here of the guard, as the Rebbe will explain. Gimel. And then the Rebbe asks a few more questions in the end of the Rambam, why these halachas were set together with the laws of Shmira, and why did the Rambam write halacha Yud Beis separate from halacha Yud Aleph? It's just like one Hemshech Gimel. In the halachas and al besim hilchos Beis Abchira, in the above halachas in the end of Beis Abchira, seine noch faran noch kama you can call in. There's a few. There are also general questions over here. Aleph. Number one, this halacha Yud Aleph does not fit in with all the halachas that are spoken till now, it seems. Up till now, the halachas seem to talk about how to watch the mikdash. And this halacha all of a sudden talks about how you prepare the mikdash. This doesn't really fit here. Aleph. Pavos bring the Rambam od dem inyan. How come the Rambam brings this idea that they would inspect in the morning to see everything is okay in the Beis Hamikdash, in Hilchos Shmiras Beis Hamikdash, in the laws in which we're talking here, discussing the guarding of the Beis Hamikdash. The halachas bis halach Yud Aleph, the laws up till the 11th halacha, gehören zu dem Perek. They belong to this chapter. In Zeiretzich wegen Shmiras Hamikdash, in them it's discussed how the Mikdash was guarded. Ober Teuchen halacha Yud Aleph v'halacha Yud Beis, but halacha Yud Aleph Yud Beis, which talks about that they made sure that everything in the Beis Hamikdash is okay, is lechoire nitshayich zu Shmiras Hamikdash, that seemingly is not connected to guarding the Mikdash. Not zur der hachona v'hakdoma to Seder Avodas Hayom. That's the preparation, introduction before you started to serve the day. There's the jobs they would do. They needed to inspect that everything in the Azore is as needs to be in order to start doing the service of the day. So where does it belong to in Hilchos Tmidim Musafim? That belongs in the laws of Tmidim Musafim, which gives you the order of the days that you start the Tamid, and then the Musaf, how it orders, should start with the morning. Actually, over there it is in a short way, it says over there as well. So why did the Rambam bring in how to look at, how to check out the inspection that everything is okay in the laws of Shmiras HaMikdash, where he describes how the Mikdash was guarded? And Beis, and the other question, the let's halacha Yud Beis is a hemshech from the halacha shelefoneo. The last halacha in the chapter 8, the final chapter of the Beis HaBechira, the final halacha is a follow-up to the halacha that precedes it, as it says very clearly, that means like this order that we just said in halacha Yud Aleph, we do it all the time. The only thing there's a change. As Shabbos is given anders, that Shabbos was different. Is farvosot as the Rambam oizgitelt. So why did the Rambam separate it in halacha b'fnei atzma, in its own halacha? Why did he make a separate halacha Yud Beis? Ubefrat, especially as kiyadua, it's known is afrodus halacha beramba halachas berambam b'diuk. When the Rambam separates halacha, it's precise. We learn from that. So why did the Rambam separate it over here? And this is actually going to be explained according to the Rebbe, that this halacha teaches us an important principle. Halacha Yud Aleph teaches about the honor of the Beis Hamikdash. Halacha Yud Beis teaches us even more, as the Rebbe will explain. Dalet. First, the Rebbe is going to explain that when we talk about guarding of the Beis Hamikdash, we're not talking about we're afraid of thieves or things like that. We're talking about a honor guard. It's a guard that is done to honor the Beis Hamikdash, and that will explain how all these things are also part of the honor of the Beis Hamikdash. Dalet, the bir was an explanation. The Rambam is mevayer b'tchilas hapedek. The Rambam explains in the beginning of the chapter As Shmiras HaMikdash is nit mepachad oivim chulu. The guarding of the Mikdash is not because we're afraid of the enemies, nor mishum koved HaMikdash. That's because the honor of the Mikdash. The Rambam says, "While eine doime palterin sheyesh olav shemrim, lepalterin she'ein olav shemrim." You can't compare a palace that there are guards. It's honorable, and or a palace that doesn't have guards. The honor guards makes the honor of the Mikdash. Von dem is movement, from this is understood. As the protim wegen welches retzich in dem Perek has, that the details that is discussed in this chapter, chapter 8, Zainen Mishum Kovid HaMikdash. It's talking about this is the honor of the Mikdash. So based on this principle, we can say, as euch der Inyan Habediko is Mishum Kovid Abayis, that also why are we inspecting? Why are we checking? That is an honor of the Beis HaMikdash. The Rambam arangishtel the halachas, and that's why the Rambam placed the laws of Yud Aleph and Yud Beis in them Perek in this chapter. The Bedika, this inspection, is getan geworden beikar, was done mainly nit nur als hachonat zabedes hamikdash. It's not just to prepare for the service in the mikdash, nor als kovid hamikdash. It was done for the honor of the mikdash. Ukemavur b'makom barucha, as explained elsewhere at length, as der teuchen hakoved durch shmiras hamikdash, besteht in them. What is the idea? What is this honor that we give by guarding the Mishkan? Consists in this was the Shemira Weist. When you guard, that points to the fact as miznit masiyach das von Mikdash, that we don't remove our minds of the Mikdash. We're always with the Mikdash. We're always guarding this, always being guarded. The similar ideas with regards to the inspection. Der mit was jeden in the fries the fact that you every morning you inspect is men moisif in kovid hamikdash. You add in the honor of the mikdash that you're always inspecting and checking the mikdash. And also you see now the language that they used after they finished inspecting was not a language that expressed, oh, everything is okay, but an expression of honor of the mikdash. Was the kohanim aboitkim. Noch der Bedika, these Kohanim that were checking, after they finished checking, gesagt Eilu Eilu, they say one to another, Shalom, Hakel Shalom. Peace, everything is peace. Onita Loshin, they didn't say a language was his Lechoyre that would seem, Mer Masim zu sagen, should have said as Alsis Beseder. Everything is in order and ready to start the service of the Mikdash. They didn't say that. Let's say, Hakol bim koima, everything is in place. Or that Hakol karo, everything is fitting. Kiyotz are similar. They don't say that. They say, Shalom Hakol Shalom. Well, this is a Loshen Shal Kovet, because here is a language, this is a language of honor. And this is all about honoring the Mikdash. And that's why the Rambam brings it over here. And that's the purpose of it. The main purpose. And the Rebbe in Oishei is going to bring the example that we find by the Nes Chanukah, that according to some opinions, you were allowed to light it with Shem and Tomei, but yet they made the miracle of Chanukah Hashem to show the dearness of Yidden that they are not lighting with Tomei. So there's an idea, a specialty to show the honor is not to use a muktzah, to use it in a covetic way. Lefizeh wird verrentet werden die Shaila Hanal in der letzter halacha. According to this, we'll answer the above question in the last halacha. How come we didn't do on Shabbos in the usual way, even though that it's Ashvus is mutter? Ubahagdim, by bringing introduction of an example. In the Minyan for Neis Hashem and the Chanukah, with regards to the miracle of the oil and Chanukah, Bastimu kol hashmanim shebehekel chulu. They defiled all the oils that were in the heichal, in the room, in the mikdash. Botku v'loy motzu elo pachechot shel Shem, and they only They searched and they only found one jug of oil, shel shemen of oil, that was lying there sealed with the seal of the high priest of the Kohen Gadol. It just had enough to light for one day. Nasa b'neis, a miracle happened. V'dliku mimenu shmoina yomim, they lit from that jug 8 days. Is you do the shaila? So the question is an own question. As says Frana, there is an opinion as to Mahutra B'tzibur that Tuma has been permitted by community, which means when the whole you need to do a mitzvah of tzibur, and there's Tuma there, you can use Tuma. Is Ladeyazu, so that opinion. Then the Eibishter gedaft machen hanes Hashemen. Why did the Eibishter need to make a miracle for the oil? You can madlik sein the neighbors mit Shemen Tome. You could have lit the neighbors, the candles, with the filed oil, according to that opinion. Entering them meforshim, so the meforshim answer on this. Afal pias tuma hutra b'tzibur, even though that it is permissible. Hat aber der Eibishter gewollt weisen chibossen shel Yisrael. Hashem wanted to show how dear the Yidden are, that the Yidden are dear to him. Und der Rebbe hat gemacht dem Neis, and that's why he made the miracle. The Yidden soll mekayim sein the mitzvah von adlokas neiris hamanoira, so that the Yidden will fulfill this mitzvah of lighting of the lamps of the menorah in an oifen in such a way was medarf nit ankommen zum heter von Tuma, that we do not need to come on to that special allowance of Tuma because it is B'tzibur. Das heißt, which means, das was Tuma Hutra. When we say that it's permissible, is as Benegeya Avidosan Shal Yisrael, the service of the Yin, you could do this service. But but to go and show the special love, the dearness of the Yidden, then you need to circumvent and avoid Tuma, even if it's permissible. And that's why the Eibishter made the nest, so they don't have to light Tomidikim. So we can say in our case, when B'dikas HaKohanim b'migdosh volt given, nor astam an hoga b'migdosh. If the checking of the Kohanim in the Migdosh would have just been a general conduct in the Migdosh, or that even if it was a part of the service of the Migdosh, is there din an ein shvus b'migdosh? The locha is there is no shvus. With the Rambam zok, ados is a heter b'lachatchila. The Rambam says you can go ahead and do so to begin with, in all these cases that have been written down before. In Hilchos Korban Pesach, the Rebbe brings down. This particular one is associated with the honor of the Mikdash. This is trying to emphasize how great the honor of the Mikdash. And when we talk about the Mikdash, Balderech, similar, was loy min hamikdash. Rambam says loy min hamikdash ata yorei. You're not afraid of the Mikdash. Elam mishat tzival yerosei, from the one who instructed to fear the Mikdash. It's Hashem. Hashem says to respect the Mikdash. Azoy oich benegei kavod hamikdash. Same thing when we talk about the honor of the Mikdash is by them nitmasim. It's not fitting as the bedikas or milchatchila zayin in an oifen that the inspection to begin with should be in such a way as medaf onkum heter that you need to come on to an allowance for ein shvus b'mikdash, that no shvus b'mikdash. So you want to do it in the most righteous way without having to come on to any allowances. That would not be covered. Service of the mikdash, yeah, but not the covered of the mikdash. Since this is covered at mikdash, that's why we don't use this allowance. And they didn't use those lanterns on Shabbos. Oizvov. Der mit is euch move on. So now we also understand the connection to this Perek over here and why there's a second halacha yud base. Damit is euch moving von was der Prat in der Bedike, as B'Shabbos is given anders wie B'Choil, that Shabbos was different than the weekday, is Aleph Shaykh to Hilchos Beis HaBechira, that it's connected, it belongs in Hilchos Beis HaBechira. Beis kommt in a halacha b'fnei atzma, and it also comes in its own halacha. Hayois as the mit kommt zu noch a größere und starker hat Goshe, because now you have a greater and a stronger emphasis in Koved HaMikdash, in the honor of the Mikdash. Me hat nicht nur bechlal beide gewend the Mikdash jeden Tag. Not only generally did they inspect the Mikdash every day, k'dei lahader b'chvoidei, to honor and beautify the honor, to do it in a respectful way, which is Allah Yud Aleph Nonochma, Allah Yud Beis. The bedike is given, this inspection was in an Eifem Hudur Mechubad, it was in a perfected and an honorable way. Was der Far hat man bei Shabbos nicht genutzt kein Heter. That's why on Shabbos they did not use an allowance for ein Shvus b'Mikdash. Dort man hat beide gewähnt mit Neres hat Lukim Shom Erev Shabbos. You searched and you inspected the area with lamps from Erev Shabbos because you did not want to use anything of a Shvus. That's how much the honor of the Beis HaMikdash. Mitam zeh is das der Siyum von Perek Ches von Hilchos Beis HaBechira. And that's the reason why this is the conclusion of the 8th chapter of the laws of Beis HaBechira. Velcharet ka'omer wegen Koved HaMikdash. The 8th chapter talks about the honor. The guard is an honor of the Mikdash. What in der halacha wird aris gebracht, because in this halacha it's brought out der Mechabed sein der Mikdash of an Hechten Eufen. To honor the Mikdash on the highest of levels, on Hoga bin Hidur min Hidur, a conduct which is in the most perfect way. That on Shabbos we did not use anything that needed the heter, and that's the way we were honoring the Beis HaMikdash and inspecting it in such a way. And then Zion, the Rebbe gives another suggestion also in the difference why we use a Shavuos or not. There's a difference between when constructing the Beis HaMikdash and when it's already been built. Here, up till now, we were making the distinction whether it's a matter of serving in the Beis HaMikdash or honoring the Beis HaMikdash. When we honor the Beis HaMikdash, like the Shmira, it's not done with a Shavuos, but the service of the Beis HaMikdash can be done with a Shavuos. Here, the Rebbe wants to suggest that while we're building the Beis HaMikdash, you can use it while permitting a Shavuos, but after it was built, then we should be more careful. Let's see what the Rebbe says. Say more, another idea by introducing the Negeya to Malacha b'Mikdash b'Shabbos gefindt man zwei Hafachen. As it relates to doing work in the Mikdash on Shabbos, there is two opposite. Von ein Seite, on one hand, we find there's a lot of Malacha done on Shabbos. Is Avodas Hatmidim v'Hamusofim. Those are the korbanos. Ushar korbanos hatzibur shezmanam kavua, as well as all other communal sacrifices who have a set time. Nit nor doicha Shabbos mutter Shabbos. Not only do they override Shabbos and are permissible to a Shabbos, nor is a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to do them a Shabbos. But meidach gisa, aber is the din. But on the other hand, the halacha is as ein binyan beis hamikdash doicha Shabbos, that the building of the Beis HaMikdash does not override the Shabbos. We learn this euch up in Mechilta Reish Parsha Seinu, as the Mechilta learns it from this Parsha in Vayakhel, Der Fund, was Moshe hat Magden gewähnt, dem Zivu von Isur Malacha, B'Shabbos zum Zivu von Malachas HaMishkan. Moshe introduced first the command of prohibition against Malacha on Shabbos before it told Malachas HaMishkan to tell you that the Malachas HaMishkan does not override Shabbos. So here's a paradox. We find the opposite. On one hand, you do all kinds of malacha in the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, and yet you're not allowed to build the Mikdash on Shabbos. So we can say, what's the explanation? Noch dem was der Mikdash is sheina mokum kodesh b'shleimus, after the Mikdash is already a holy place completely. Und es redt sich wegen a prat a meloche in Beis Hamikdash, and we're talking about a detail work in the Beis Hamikdash. Demut werden sie nicht gerechnet am Sichos. Then the meloche is not considered to be a weekly act. But kodesh, when it's in holiness, is yet the zach nit kemai. Every item is not a weekly matter, not an inyan for kedusha, but a matter of kedusha. B'meila is in them talking Shabbos, so there's no desecrating Shabbos. They act, whatever you do, a ma'asechel, it's still considered kedusha. That is after the Beis Hamikdash is constructed. Then es handelt sich aber wegen aufmachen dem Beis Hamikdash va kedusha sheboy, when we're dealing to make up the Beis Hamikdash and its sanctity, hat nit kein Ort adozol geton werden. So then there is really no room that should be done mitamaisa sheyesh by mishum chilul Shabbos, with an act that involves desecration of Shabbos. This is a valderech. This is similar than bir was andere meforshim zogen. There's other portion explaining Lagabi dem Nes Hashem and the Chanukah with regards to the miracle of the oil of Chanukah. Ados was man hat dann nicht gekannt nutzen dem Klau von Tumah Hutra. The reason why they could not use then the rule that Tumah is permissible is weil demut hat gedarft sein der Chinuch HaMikdash Mechodesh, because they need to rededicate the Mikdash from anew. Beim Aufmachen a neue Kedusha, when you're coming to make up a new sanctity, sagt man nicht Tumah Chulu. They don't say that it was permissible. That's why it needed to be the miracle of Hanukkah, because as dedication, they couldn't use it. So kemen ze sagen al derech ze zer benikeya isurish shvus b'mikdash. We can say similar it is as it relates to the prohibition of shvus in the mikdash. Chachomim hamatir given shvus b'mikdash in fallen. When were they allowing shvus in the mikdash in cases welche seinen verbunden mit avoida b'mikdash, that are associated with work in the mikdash, or the malacha boy, or work in it? When we're talking about building the mikdash, also the honor to honor the building of the mikdash. Who instituted, similar to the Torah, just like the Torah didn't allow to build the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos, they didn't allow to give the honor of the Beis Hamikdash on Shabbos. Das Aufmachen, to make up, or der Moisef sein, verstärken, to add, to strengthen the Kedusha from the Beis HaMikdash, the sanctity of the Beis HaMikdash, darf nicht getan werden durch ein Meister shel Shvus, should not be done through an act of Shvus. And that's why the Rebbe explains that making up the Beis HaMikdash, when serving in the Beis HaMikdash, Shvus doesn't matter. But to make up a Beis HaMikdash, to honor it, over there, it should not be done through a Shvus. Ches. Wenn den Tam was die Hilchos von Shmiras v'Koved HaMikdash or der Rambam reingestellt in Hilchos Beis HaBechira as the reason that why are the laws of guarding and the honor of the Mikdash, he put it into the laws of the chosen house about the Beis HaMikdash. Weil derech zeh, those was Rabbeinu HaKodesh at Kavegu and the din of Shmiras HaMikdash, also Rabbeinu HaKodesh in the Mishnah put the laws of guarding the Mishnah in the tractate of the measures was in Yonazain the Midas Abayis, whose the idea is the measures of the Beis HaMikdash und nicht bloß dort, was redt sich wegen die Avodas HaNasis boy, and not in the place in which it discusses the services that is done in the Mishkan. So the Rambam puts it in the law of the Beis HaBechira versus in the laws of the Avodas you do in the Mishkan. So it's explained, it was spoken elsewhere. The mitzvah from Binyan Beis HaMikdash, the mitzvah of building the Beis HaMikdash, is the chiv. What's the obligation? Nit pe'ula sabinyan. It's not the act of building, nor the tetzah from their pe'ula. It's the result of the action, the nifal, what comes out of it. Sheyiyeh as ezol zayin abeis hamikdash, that it should be abeis hamikdash. The Ragat Shover is mevar barucha, as the Ragat Shover explains it. The Fizei is move on. So according to this, understood farvos shmiras hamikdash is a tale from Hilchos Beis HaBechira, why guarding of the Mikdash is part of the laws Beis HaBechira. But the Shmira is poyel, because also the guarding impacts as all zayin sheyah Beis HaMikdash. There should be a Beis HaMikdash. A Bayis Shel Koved, an honorable house. A Mokum Roi Tzu Zayin Beis HaBechira, a fitting place to be, a chosen place. So it's the Shmira that provides actually for the goal of the Beis HaBechira, which is not the building, it's the honorable place that it is. Ladem kumtois, according to this, it turns out as those was the Kohanim seinen Beitkim b'chol yom b'mikdash. This that they check every day in the Mikdash, mishum koved HaMikdash, because this is the honor of the Mikdash. And this canal, as we said before, is not only is this a preparation and introduction before the day's work begins, but is this is also a continuation and a part of the building. This is all the Beis HaBechira, the building of the Mikdash. The bedika is al derech bedek habayis. This is similar to the fixing up the structure, making sure that it's whole, everything is fixed. The bedek habayis to support the structure, the building. The home, this structure becomes more honored and more perfected through this shmira and through this koved hamikdash that takes place. Und alpizeh is moving from Bosman Zok, don't need them cloud from ein Shavuos b'mikdash. So based on this, we understand why we don't say the rule there's no Shavuos b'mikdash. About the bedika is a tale from binyan hamikdash, because this is part of building the mikdash. By welchem Torah Zok, Torah says as it is nidoicha Shabbos, that it doesn't override Shabbos. So therefore, Chachamim misaking when came the Reise. Chachamim instituted, similar to the Torah, does only Teicha Zayin Zer Yisur Shavuos, that it should not override the Yisur Shavuos, because this is all part of the building of it, the honor and the structure, because this is what it is. The purpose of the Beis HaBechira is not the actual building, it's the sanctity, the honor, the respect. And this is part of the respect of it. So that's why it shouldn't happen through Chil Shabbos Midrabanan. The Rabbanan came there Isatikin, just like Minat Torah, so it shouldn't be through a Shabbos. Apizeh yesh lekasher dem siyum von der Hilchos Beis HaBechira mit haschalosim, to tie the end of the laws of Beis HaBechira with the beginning of the Beis HaBechira. The note seifim b'tchilosim, we know that the end is stuck in the beginning, so that there is a connection from the end to the beginning. In only for Hilchos Beis HaBechira is that Rambam Kaveya them gather from mitzvahs binyan Beis HaBechira. The beginning of the laws of Beis HaBechira, the Rambam sets up what is the definition, what is the mitzvah of building Beis HaBechira. He says, Lasis Bayis La Hashem, to make a house Hashem. Not live there, not to build, but to make. Because the full learned men up, but that's the way we learn. As the mitzvah is not the pulas habniya, that the mitzvah is not the act of building, nor the tetzah is the result. As Zolzaina Bayis Lavai should be a home for Hashem. Mit alle Protim was Bayis der home, but all the details such a house needs to have. Und der selber Inyan wird mutgesch in dem letzten Perek von Hilchos Beis HaBechira. And the same idea is emphasized in the last chapter of the laws of Beis Bechira. Mahai Taima, for the same reason. Canal. Is Oich Shmiras HaMikdash HaChelik from Beis Bechira. That's why guarding the Mikdash becomes a part of the Beis Bechira. Bis zum Simein, to the end of the idea of das kommt Rosh Sim Hilchos Beis Bechira, as it is comes out in the end of the Beis Bechira, as mitzad dem was es is a prat in binyan bonui from Beis Bechira, because it's a detail in the building, in noi, in the beauty from the Beis Bechira. Binyan benoi from Beis Bechira, it's building in the beauty, is as nitoich Shabbos. Also not a shvus. So this is part of the idea that it should be a beautiful home with all details that it has. Should be a ready home and a protected home, a coveted home. And that's why we don't do anything as the Rambam, to the last halach of the Rambam, that we don't even use the lamps on Shabbos, because we don't want to build by using even a shvus. And the Rebbe now in Yud says the Biur HaKeshev in Tchilas Beis Abchirim Siyumah Mepnimis Inyonim, in the inner matter of things. But Geret Kam upon him, spoken already many times as Afal Pivos mit Binyan HaMishkan Ubayis Rishon V'Sheni, even though building the Mishkan and the first and the second structures, build Beis HaMikdash, Hot Memekayim when the mitzvah from V'Osu LeMikdash, we fulfill the mitzvah of make from your sanctuary. He says, aber nicht gewinnen an Eufung von Binyan Abayis B'Tachlis HaShlemus. It wasn't that they built the home in the ultimate wholesomeness, completion. This will be accomplished by Mikdash Adonai Kohen Yedecha, by the Mikdash that Hashem will build, prepare with His hands. Bayis Hashlish was Vetzayin Abayis Nitzchi, the third Beis HaMikdash, which will be an eternal. Und das ist euch der Tam HaPnimi, and this is the inner reason of the letzte halacha von Hilchos Beis HaBechira. The last halacha of the laws of the Beis HaBechira read wegen dem Seder from Medikas HaAzorah in Mikdash B'Yem HaShabbos, that speaks about the order of checking the Azorah in the Mikdash on the day of Shabbos. L'ramis, to hint as der Siyum U'Shleimus from Beis HaBechira, that the conclusion and what is the wholesomeness of the Beis HaBechira is in the Mikdash was Vetzayin La'osid Love. Shabbos will be in the future, in the Yom Shekuli Shabbos, the day that's old Shabbos, not in the Beis HaMikdash. Till now, the Siyum of Beis HaBechira is Shabbos Beis HaMikdash. Kemedoch Meina. So one can think of it. Bal the Shleimus Habayis Vet Zayin La'osid Love. Since the wholesomeness of the structure, the building, will be in the future to come, is chas v'sholem, so God forbid, unser itzker avodah nitofis mokim. So the service we do now is not really count, does not take up space, doesn't count. Hot nit kein chashimus chas v'sholem. God forbid, has no importance. Bavoren the Rambam cautions there. As adarab, on the contrary, belayla Shabbos ein biyodom oir. There is no light on the night of Shabbos, but they search with the lights that have been lit from Erev Shabbos. In the Zman von Yom Shekule Shabbos is ein biyodem oir. The day of Yom Shekule Shabbos, there's no light. Ner mitzvah v'teira oir. They seinen shonim asher toimer ein libehem chayfes. There'll be years they say there's no desire. There's no mitzvah, no Torah. The lichtigkeit was is damul do, the light that is there. Nemtzach davke from the natives, from mitzvahs, they come from the lamps, from the mitzvahs. Was mit ongezündet im Erev Shabbos, that you had lit from before Shabbos, in Zman HaGolus. The shleimus from Bayis HaShlishi, the wholesomeness of the third Beis HaMikdash, was damul vet nizgale werden. Then it will be revealed that Ilui for the Itztiker Avodah, the advantage of the service now, Maseinu v'avodasenu kol zeman meshech hagolus. Our action, our service in the duration for the entire time of the exile. Und das gibt azirus v'idus. This gives an encouragement and a support in der Avodah von Aiden, in the service of a Yid, zu aufstellen the Migdosh und Mishkan Ruchni bei sich, to raise the Migdosh and the spiritual Mishkan by himself, v'shchanti b'soichom, b'soich kol echad v'echad b'Yisrael, inside each and every Jew, because you know that the light in the future comes from your light now, from the mitzvah and the Avodah now. And this is the end of the Beis HaBechira, the ultimate. Was those bring them binyan Beis Hamikdash Ashliyah. The service brings to the building of the third Beis Hamikdash, Begeula Hamitis Vashlema, the true and complete redemption b'mheira v'yemeinu mamash, very quickly in our days. This is Sichos Shabbos Parshat Dvorim, Shabbos Parshat Ekev Toshin Mem, and Shabbos Parshat Dvorim Toshin Mem Aleph.